What's up, guys? Nate, the old school Otaku here. And well, I believe it is now time for part 2 of the server project. So if you want to see what I have planned up my sleeve for this update and follow along with me as I continue working on this, stay tuned. And welcome back. So like I said, it is now time for part 2 of the server project. Part 1, I basically talked about what my original issues were and what my design goals were. Basically what I wanted to get out of this updated project, why I wanted to update my server, why I wanted to move into something bigger, something faster, something more powerful. Then unfortunately, this little workhorse, which has been a workhorse for me for quite a while. In fact, I believe I built this system, well, gosh, when did the Phenom X2 1055Ts come out? Or not X2, Phenom 2 X6s, the 1055Ts. When did those come out? Like 2008, 2009? Yeah, I've had this machine basically act as a workhorse for me for a little over a decade at this point. Originally, it was my main computer, and then 3 years ago, or a little over 3 years ago, I flipped to the little tiny machine that sits behind this monitor, which I did a full build video about, building that thing out, and it is my new editing workhorse and main editing computer. But then this machine became a server, mainly doing Plex and then file server duties and all the other things, and now it is an Unraid server. I didn't go through the whole setup, installation and creation process. There are other YouTubers that I believe probably would have done a much better job of explaining that whole process in great detail. I've used many of them. Space Invader 1 is one of those that has gone over that process. So didn't really feel the need to go over that, but something that a lot of people probably haven't done is, well, the actual physical moving of server parts, the working with all of that, and it is something that I have a passion for and wanted to bring you along with me on this journey. So what do I have coming up? Well, like I said in the first video, some of the main things that needed to happen with the new server was upgrades. It needed more RAM, considerably more RAM, because it only shipped with 8 gigs, I think, total. 4, 8, maybe it shipped with 16. I don't actually remember. I'll have to double check when I look into it. I don't remember if it shipped with 4 2 gig sticks or 4 4 gig sticks. So it's either shipped with 8 or 16 gigs total. Either way, I'm moving up to 128. So definitely getting an upgrade there. It needed a GPU installed into it to better support transcoding and encoding of and decoding and everything of footage and stuff for Plex. Wanted to be able to support a lot more streams, both HD streams, 4K streams, and regular streams, both internally within the house as well as externally to friends and whatnot that I've shared my Plex server with. So I wanted them to be able to actually utilize it as well. Basically, right now with this system, if I load up a 4K video, it chugs. So that is one of the main design goals. Needed that to help out with that. So there's definitely that. And then part of the other thing is new power supplies. The original power supplies that came with the machine are definitely, powerful enough. They are way too loud, just idling by, I can hear them. It's not a bad noise overall. Like, it's not the high-pitched that a lot of server parts have a tendency to have. It's one of the reasons why I cannot stand hanging out in a lot of data centers for very long. Just that noise, just, you can kind of tune it out after a while, but I unfortunately am one of those people that have a very hard time tuning out multiple noises all happening at once. I basically hear everything at once. So it's really hard to tune out background noise to focus on someone talking. And in a situation where you're in a server closet and things like that, it's much difficult. And since I don't own a place currently that I can set up as a server closet to move servers and racks and things out of the way so I don't have to worry about their noise levels, obviously I need to quiet. So that is also one of the design goals, moving to quiet. So one of the first pieces of moving to quiet is putting in new power supplies. And I finally got those in. So now that I have the new power supplies, the new RAM, and the new and the graphics card, I can get started on replacing those parts in that server and get the server up and running as far as just turning it on and testing, making sure the RAM's working good, making sure the processor works good, and testing a lot of different things with it before I'm ready to start migrating all of my drives over to it. So there's still quite a few more videos to go. I mean, I still need to replace all of the fans, so that is one of the next steps, is replacing the fans. And once I have all the fans replaced, then it's time to move all the hard drives over to the new machine, grab the USB stick out of here, because I do run Unraid on this machine, over to the other machine. And one of the great things about Unraid is it's device agnostic. It doesn't really care. All it cares is, hey, are the drives that I'm expecting still here? And that is the whole point of that system, is for that to happen. So migrating all of that, hoping that everything works, replacing the parity drive that has unfortunately failed on this machine. Well, one, I actually have two parities, but one of them has unfortunately failed, so replacing that with this, and potentially getting a couple more hard drives to increase some of that disk storage. So I've got quite a few more videos to go over, and then if you guys are liking this series and wanting to get some more information, maybe going a little bit more in depth into the configuration, the setup, looking at the IPMI on the device and other things like that to give you guys a little bit more in-depth look into this whole process. But I realize this intro is probably going on a little long, so let's get over to the table where I have the system set up and start working on doing the replacement. Come along. All right, so thanks for joining me over here at, well, the server. So like I said, I had recently gotten in basically everything I needed to start truly working on this system. Some of this we'd already gone over. The RAM modules, which I got more RAM in here. The extra bit I needed. The graphics card. And the power supplies. So yeah, let's go ahead and check out what's in the box here. Get the power supplies out, give them a good test, and go from there. So first up, I need to get into this thing. So handy dandy, extremely sharp knife. Remember, do what I say, not what I do. Never cut towards you. Oh, that is something I was taught from an early age, and for the most part I tend to follow that, but from time to time I forget. And then I remember that I'd forgotten and go on from there. So this is the power supplies. Should be two of them in here, and yep, I do see it looks like there are two in here. Well packaged. I believe these power supplies came from another YouTuber, actually. I think Art of Server, I think is the name of the YouTuber. Fellow YouTuber can't exactly say that I'm a tech tuber technically, but I am into tech. And yeah, these are packaged extremely well, considerably lighter than I was expecting. So I kind of weigh the two of them. This is definitely lighter. Now, they are technically smaller as far as total amount of power goes. These are, what are these? These are technically 1000/1200 watt power supplies. They're 1200 watt if you're running off of a 240 circuit. But if you're only running off 120, it only gives you 1000 watts. So that is one thing to note. I do only currently have a 120 volt circuit going to where my server is going to be at the time, at this moment. So there is definitely that. Not that that's a big deal. It's definitely not a deal breaker at all. It just means that it won't be at its max potential as far as power goes with it like that, and honestly that's fine. It doesn't need to be. So these new ones here are rated for 110 to 240 volt, and it looks like no matter what, it is 920 watts, no matter what voltage going into it. So these are actually really nice for a big server environment if you want tons of power. These are slightly less. I mean, this provides 1000 watts and 120, and I'm moving to 920 watts with these new ones here off of 120 or more. So it's actually not that bad, all things considered. So I don't really need this old power supply at the moment, and that's fine. So just to reiterate the issue, let's go ahead and turn this thing on, or at least let's power it on. This is considerably loud, in my opinion. So I am definitely looking forward to getting it quieter. Now the fan power's down, and it's not quite as loud. So, okay, so we now know its loudness. So next up, I want to get the power supply, the new power supply, the quiet power supply, up and going here. Now, this eBay tape is nice as far as, you know, it's kind of doing its thing, but man, did this leave residue on this thing. I do not like sticky residue, especially on server parts that are meant to be in and out of a machine. It's not good. Thankfully, this doesn't seem to be sticking too bad. It just requires a little bit of work to get off. So that's what I'm doing. kind of look at the differences here between these. There's actually not a whole lot in the way of differences. It's got the quick release and everything, has the fan on here, same connector, same configuration. It really doesn't look different at all between the two. But one of the major differences here, other than the fact that this is supposed to be quiet, that's what SQ means. So this is a PWS 920p SQ. So PWS is power supply, 920p is the power rating, so it's rated for 920 watts, and then SQ is for super quiet. And then the other interesting thing is this is an 80 plus platinum power supply. Well, these are only 80 plus gold, so this is even more efficient. So that's definitely cool. So I'm going to go ahead and install this inside. Okay, should be good and in there now. Yep, it is. All right. Then the other one I'm going to pull out because, as we remember, when I have both power supplies in, or I have both power supplies connected and not both plugged in, it beeps at me. Now, one other thing I can definitely tell, or at least notice as far as differences here, is even though there are fans, we can see that this one here has a little black cover there, whereas the new one, or the old one, well, it does have a cover, but the cover is not on both sides. The cover's only on one side, and you can actually see the fan on the other. So that's probably part of it, is just the differences in how it does its noise dampening. Now, let's go ahead and plug in the new one and see how it goes. So, first test here with the new quiet power supply. Well, there's a result. The fan did not even start spinning up. I know it's providing power to the environment. In fact, I believe if I was able to actually grab the IPM, or the cable, the network cord that I have here, in order to plug up the IPMI, that would start turning on. In fact, I can double check and see whether or not the IPMI is actually up and running here. And after pulling the cover off, we can definitely see that the light is on, which definitely means that it is powered up. There's definitely power going to the system. So let's go ahead and power her on, just to give a good test. Yep, it is providing power, providing adequate power to the system. It is definitely blowing air, considerable amount of air, and it is considerably louder. So, like I said, to get this to the truly quiet stage, I am definitely going to have to replace these fans for sure. But we knew that was an inevitability. But yeah, so that power supply worked. Cool. Power it down, and yeah, it is super quiet. Go ahead and pull that power supply off. And I guess I should go ahead and work on good enough for now. So let's go ahead and stick this other one in. Cool. Goes in nice and fine, no problems there. Go ahead and pull that one out, and one more time, power up. Make sure that it is working. So far, so good. Just waiting on the IPMI light to pop on for that system to finish booting up. There it goes. Just took it a minute. All right. They both work. All right. Gonna have to let it sit and finish its boot up sequence before it'll actually allow me to turn itself off. There we go. All right. Cool beans. Okay, so we have tested and verified that the brand new power supplies are working. So next up is to get the RAM and the other pieces in here. So first off, I'm going to have to remove these fans because unfortunately the fans hold the air guard in here, and got to take off this airflow guard in order to be able to get to the RAM. Now, just a key note for my fellow potential computer enthusiasts out there, static electricity is a thing. Now, modern equipment can actually handle static shots a whole lot better than older equipment, but I still prescribe to some of the major cautions. Now, I've got a little mat down here now. It's kind of like carpet, but not quite as bad. But I currently am not on carpet, but if I was, I would be wearing a few other things. Now, you don't have to have a grounding strip when you're working with components. In fact, you can very easily destatic yourself by touching the chassis of your machine. Now, one of the things is a lot of people say just touch the chassis, it'll equalize you. But that's not entirely true because the chassis, in and of itself, doesn't have a direct connection to ground until the power supply is inside. So one of the reasons why touching the chassis works is that the chassis is metallic. The metallic part of the chassis touches the power supply. Power supply has a direct connection to ground inside of itself from its chassis, so it goes from you to the computer chassis, to the chassis of the power supply, down to the ground wire, into your cable, out to ground. So as long as your house has been properly hooked up to ground, you can ground yourself. So that's kind of the thing, is you want to make sure you ground yourself. So what I try to do is I always try to touch the computer case before I touch anything else. Now, if I'm building a new computer and I don't actually have the power supply in the chassis yet, but I'm working, one of the first things I actually open up is the power supply, plug the power supply in, and I just touch the outside of the power supply in order to ground myself. So that is what I do to protect myself and protect the components inside the machine. So, little tip for you. So, first up, it is time to go through and deal with this RAM. So it's a little tight on this side, unfortunately, but we will get to work. In fact, I think I should give you all a little bit better view, but before that, I guess I should open up the other box here and get at the other RAM. So like I said, I ordered an initial bit of RAM, but I need more. Well, it's because the initial bit of RAM that I ordered wasn't quite enough to hit 120. So I ordered another set of RAM, and that's what this is. So, pretty good packaging overall, not entirely horrible. And then they actually, wow, they have the RAM in trays. So unlike the other dealer I dealt with, that basically just kind of put the RAM in little little bubble wrap, these actually came in their original static trays. So these look like they originally came out of a Cisco device, whereas these came out of an HP server. The one thing to note, though, is that they are the exact same type. So they're both 8 gig sticks, 2RX4, PC3, 10600R, and they're both cast latency 9. So there are slight differences. This one's 911E2, this one's 910 E1. So this is slightly better stick than these sticks. So yeah, it's not too entirely horrible, but yeah, that's currently the thing. So that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, these are the new sticks of RAM. All right, let's give you guys a better view. Well, it's not quite an overhead view, technically. It's actually more of a side view. I can't really get a proper overhead, but yeah, it should be a little bit easier for y'all to see, and actually a little bit easier for me to see as well. Let's go ahead and remove the old stick. So the old stick here, kind of see what that says here. So this is actually 4 gigs. So I have 4 gigs. So 4, 8, 12. So total is 16. So I'm going from 16 to 128 gigs of RAM. That is definitely a considerable upgrade for RAM, to be entirely honest. All right, let's get the old ones over there. Okay, make sure that we're down. I'm ready to have all of them open. Much easier to get this side out because it's not as close to the side of the case as the other side. Actually, yeah. Push that back in. So that'd come out a little bit. All right. So, like I said, we've got a ton of these new RAM sticks to install. So what I want to try and do, these are all similar, but not all exactly the same. So what I want to try and do is go through them all and separate them out by their cast latency. What I want to try and do is install these in a certain way so that they will be the best they can be. I want to install the better ones first and kind of move on from there. So printed here, it actually kind of tells you which one is what. So we see here that P1, so this is processor 1, this is P2, processor 2.
So we see that there's dim 1, 2, 1, 2, and dim 1, 2, 1, 2. This is dim D, dim C, dim A, dim B. So always populate dim X1 first. So you want dim X1 populated first, is what it says. So we know that dim 1 is always first. So looks like blue is dim 1. So we want to populate the blue dims first. And we probably want to populate A first before D first. Okay. So knowing that, that tells us exactly what we need to do. So I need to populate these two before these two, because this is dim A and B, and then this is C and D. So we want to go A, B, C, D, and then back the other way for black. So it'd be the same on this side. So this one shows dim G, H, F, and E. So dim E first, and this is 1. So 1, 2, or 1, 2, 1, 2. So we want to go here, 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 and here. Yep. So that's what we want first. So we want 1, 2, or no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because they're mirrored. That's kind of how that's written in there. Okay. Enough talk there. Now I need to figure out all of these. So I know this is so, like I said, I want to install these ones that are slightly better than the new ones that I'd gotten. There's not really much of a difference. I'm not going to notice too much of a difference, but I want to install these first. So we know that we want to go dim A, and these are keyed. So there's only one way you can put it in. It won't actually go in the other way because of this notch right there. So really you just want to line it up in the hole, apply equal pressure, and it should click right on in. So we go ahead and do the same thing on this other one. Perfect. Now I only have 6 of these really good ones. So what I want to do is I actually want both processors to be the same. So the thing is that this processor only has access to this half of RAM. This processor has direct access to this half. They can cross, they can go back and forth, but it's slower. So you really want to have them the same. You don't want to populate this one with better RAM, this one with worse RAM, because that means this processor will technically not work the best. So you want to try and keep them even as best as you can. So that is currently the plan. So we want to go and actually populate here first. So I know that I have 1, 2, 3. I have a total of 6, so I actually can go 3. So let's go ahead and populate this one, because this is C. There we go. And then what we'll do is do the same thing on this side. So like I said, this is keyed, so you can just go right in here. And this is, according to the chart over here, dim 1, and this is dim 1E, E, F, G, and H. So in to the inside. And then once again to the outside. There we go. Now that that is in, we can start populating everything else. Now, like I said, I want to do these in the same order. So all the rest of these I know are the same. So I've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8 sticks here. And I've got 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more slots. So I've got 8 sticks. So I'm going to use 2 of these sticks, and that actually leaves 2 left over. So I've got 4 total of these, 8 more of these, and then these will be the last ones I put in, and we'll kind of go from there. Overall, the fact that these are HP and these are Cisco doesn't actually mean anything. What's really more important is the fact that they're all Samsung chips. So if I go ahead and open this one up, in order to pull it out of its case, we can see that it is a Samsung chip. And so is this one. So no difference really between the two. There is a slight difference in their cast latencies, which is why I'm going with the slightly better cast latency first. So go ahead, populate that. There we go. And move on to the next one. Okay. Well, now we've got equal amounts of RAM, populated the first slots and everything. Now I can just start populating the rest of this. So I will speed this up for y'all so you don't have to watch. All right, that is all of them installed. Nice and easy like. So I have 2 sticks left over, and that's actually a really good thing because since I have 2 sticks left over, that means I have 2 extras in case one were to go bad. That is actually the whole entire point. So I have 2 sticks that I can use to replace any bad ones that I happen to come across. And plenty of these in order to ship the old ones out in. So there we go. That is all of the RAM installed. So next I need to get the GPU installed, which I'm going to need a I am going to need a screwdriver for, so I'm going to have to go get that here. But wanted to show off this fancy Quadro. This is a Quadro P2000 card. It does not require any auxiliary power. It pulls everything through the PCI Express bus, and it will slot in just nicely into this machine right up here. So I just need to see, okay, what do I need to remove? I need to remove this slot here. So I'll be back. Screwdriver. Handy dandy screwdriver. This was actually a gift from a family member. And one of the cool things is it has a nice little sensor here that can actually sense if power is connected. So if I hit the button, and let's move this over. So this power line is live. I know it's live because it's connected and powering on the system. But if I hold the button down, lets me know that it is live. So that's come in handy actually a couple of times. And then the other cool thing is it's got a little extra light to help. And well, it's automatic. So these are really nice for working on computer parts because it doesn't give you a ton of torque, but it gives you just enough torque. So to install a GPU or any expansion card, you just need to remove one of these side pieces here from the edge. Just make sure you know which one, and what I like to do is I kind of try to dry fit it slightly. And then all it takes is you slide it in. Well, looks like I can't install this one into this slot because of here. Well, wish I would have realized that from the get-go. That would have made things a whole lot easier. That's fine. That's fine. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this HBA card up to the top slot up here. Try to put a little bit of extra light in here to help with that, but I'm going to move it to this top slot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the graphics card into this slot because there's more room. And that should allow it to actually work. with that way better there. I'm not a big fan of those two cards being so close to each other, but I think that is just gonna have to do. So time to secure them in place. All right. Now, before I go through the process of putting the rest of these covers back on here, I think it's high time I start this machine up and see how it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up a little bit, move some things around so y'all can see again, and we will be back in a minute. All right, so I now have the RAM hooked up, graphics card hooked up, and yeah, so the only other thing left to do is to plug this thing in and see what happens. Now, if I remember right, I also had potentially pulled out a VGA cable that I can use, and I plugged in the IPMI cord, and let's power it up. That's right. Forgot about that for a second. Now, I don't have the air shield on this yet. Didn't want to put that in until I was verified that things were working. So that's one of the next steps here is, well, how does everything look? Now, these systems are designed to run headless, so doesn't need to have anything technically hooked up to it, and it should technically work. There were some beeps that I just heard, but I don't know specifically those beeps meant anything. Those are the beeps I've been hearing since I originally picked up this device, and I know that it works over IPMI. Just whether or not the system will actually boot, as it were. And servers do take a little while to boot up, so that could also be it as well. So just going to wait a little bit and see where we're at. All right, so I figured out what the problem was. Turns out, if you're not using the correct monitor, you're not going to actually see what's on screen. So you can see we got a basic boot prompt here telling me that there's no disk. Well, I verified everything worked with the IPMI, and we're good from there. Now, I just walked over here with this old keyboard, which I actually keep around because some of my older machines, USB doesn't work till after the OS boots. So I got an old PS2 keyboard. Well, I just found out that this device, this motherboard, is USB only. So I'm going to go get a USB keyboard. Be right back. Let me tell you how slightly embarrassing it is as an IT person to have pulled out a PS2 keyboard only to find out that USB is the way this system works. But to be honest, in the server space, even modern servers still tend to come with PS2. installed on them, because most data centers, the KVMs, which are the which basically allow you to operate more than one server at a time, you know, so you can see mouse, keyboard, monitor, all of that. Those KVMs are old and they have a tendency to have PS2. Well, now knowing that this motherboard doesn't have PS2 on it, so this device is USB only, definitely will determine my next steps when it comes to getting a KVM eventually for utilization for these once I get this into a rack. But for the most part, IPMI works. So, and I did verify that the system was up and running through the IPMI interface on my back on my computer. So that's how I knew that this was working. So I just plugged in the keyboard, worked right away. So now it's wanting me to input a boot device, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-Alt-Delete. We see Supermicro, so that is good. And I'm waiting on the system to initialize, and I'm going to hit the delete key once things start booting up and it gives me the chance to do so that I can get into setup. So typically, hit it enough times, you'll hear a beep, and that'll let you know that, hey, we've gotten your input. Now it's booting the BIOS of the SAS controller cards. So it's going through that, and this SAS IT mode. So I know that that's there, which is what I'm expecting. That's that one riser card that's in here that's connected to all of the hard drives. So it's going to boot again, go through its process. This is actually pretty normal. Dual booting, things like that. It's pretty typical. I'm going to keep hitting delete some more to try and make sure that it works. And hopefully it will get me in to the BIOS like I requested. Oh, it did not. So it did not like this being connected like it was. Didn't load it for some reason. Don't know why, but it just loaded it there. Did it do it quick enough? Don't know. Don't know if I did. That's an interesting thing I'm finding out here, at least as far as trying to configure this direct on the machine, as it were. It didn't like that keyboard initially. Maybe it'll get me into the BIOS this time. Maybe I did it. Entering setup. Hey, there it goes. That's what I want to see. There we go. Now I'm in the BIOS screen. So, yeah. I don't really have a whole lot to go through, but one of the things we can definitely check here is we can check the memory and whatnot on the machine. So I see total memory is 131,072 megabytes of DDR, so that's 131,000 megabytes, which mega kilo 131 kilobytes. Yeah, it doesn't seem quite right. I don't know if I'm... Oh, that's mega. So that's mega, so that'd be kilo. No. Kilo, mega, giga. Yeah, 131 gigabytes. Which, yeah, I mean, I installed technically 128, so with the way this is showing, that looks about right. So now I can get into the BIOS, and I can start looking at all of this. Now, obviously, this is way too loud, especially if I go in and install the other fans. which definitely doesn't actually increase the noise too much, but this is definitely too much to sleep with, to sleep to. One of the nice things is I can go in and I can start messing with the BIOS. But first, I got a USB key. I'm going to install it into the USB thing in the back here, which admittedly is a little difficult now that I have the P2000 in here. There we go. It is in. So let's go ahead and reboot and see if I can get into it to boot to the USB key, which I'd already configured the boot settings on this so that it will actually boot to USB first. It'll attempt to do that. So let it go through its boot loop that it's got to go through, doing all of its initializations and everything. I believe lights on the USB are working, keyboard's working, all of that's working, so that's good. And we will hopefully boot to USB, which is my first time booting to this specific USB key, but hopefully it works. Hey, I'm into Ventoy, which is exactly what I wanted. And yep, I can go through all of this. It's definitely ramping up because it's doing something. And what I want to do is I'm going to boot into Ubuntu Desktop, because I want to see if that graphics card's actually working. I want to see if I can see it. Oh yeah, listen to those ramp up as it starts actually doing some work. It's definitely cool to see. Now ultimately the check is going to be to boot into a machine and actually see if I can get like a graphics display coming out from the P2000, though I'm not ever planning to actually hook the P2000 directly up for video out. Actually, it's mainly going to be for to utilize for encoding and things. So I don't know. I'm going to see how it all goes, but one of the things I wanted to check was whether or not this was working as is, and my next step is going to be plugging in a hard drive, just a basic SATA drive. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I've got a extra SSD sitting around that I can plug in here that I want to install and test a few other things. So it's probably going to be the next video, is the testing portion of all of this, the real test. I got everything installed, and now it's moving on to the next phase, which is going to be some other testing and things. I mean, I've got to replace the fans and whatnot in here and get it going. But oh yeah, these heat sinks are warming up. This front one's pretty good, but this rear one's warming up because it's not quite getting as much airflow. System's working, that's for sure. Hey, okay. So now I want English, and I want to try Ubuntu. So it should boot into the desktop OS, which is the whole point I wanted to try. Now, I'm probably going to install Windows or something else on here later. But for now, this is what I wanted to see. Hey, we've got some graphics and things going. So next step is to... Well, next step is to try and figure out whether or not that GPU is working. So... Not exactly sure how to do that in Ubuntu, but I will check here in a moment and we'll see, because that's the other thing. Did everything I plug in, is it there? This is the final check. Google to the rescue. I see that it is seeing that there's an NVIDIA Corporation GP106GL Quadro P2000 plugged into this machine thanks to a lovely terminal command. LSPCI, verbose, and grepping for VGA, so it actually shows the VGA controllers. So that is definitely cool. It found that, so that's awesome. Got a mouse now, got a keyboard, and an old Samsung 860 EVO 500 gig drive. In fact, this was the old cache drive out of the other server. So I'm going to plug this up into this machine, install OS, and kind of move on from there. Y'all don't specifically need to see a lot of that directly, at least not in this video, so stay tuned for next time. And yeah, in the meantime, thanks for watching up to this point. I think it's about time I powered down this machine, so we're going to go ahead and power it off. Go ahead and tell it to power off. I know that so much quieter now. But it's actually cool. Now that I have the new power supply, I can actually leave the power supply plugged in. I can leave this connected. I can turn this all on. I can control it directly from the machine here, or I can control it from my IPMI. Back at my system, which is probably what I'll do for the next video, doing some controlling, some testing, and some configurations here. So that's probably one of the next steps that I've got going while I wait on the fans to come in. So there's definitely more to do. Always more to do. And even once I get this all up and running, I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to do and configure and test out and have fun with. But that's half the fun of this. So either way though, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you've stuck with me up to this point, I appreciate it. I know this is slightly different from the usual content that I typically do through here, but I hope to maybe do some more of this type of stuff in the future as I can start getting some more tech stuff in. Like I said, this is my technically my job, but also a hobby of mine, so there's definitely that. And yeah, I am definitely enjoying this and glad I'm able to actually take you guys along for the ride. So thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning into any of my content, I encourage you to go ahead and check out some of my other videos. The majority of the content I have has a tendency to not be exactly like this. It's usually more anime related. Do the wall behind me. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to check out more of what I have, I encourage you to check out the rest of my channel. I've got tons more videos. Wait till the end card. It's going to give you a couple potential options there. But if you do like what you see and want to see more beyond and keep seeing more, I encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, put you front row and center whenever I release something new, and hit that bell icon. It's supposed to notify you whenever I do release something, so you can be the first to hopefully hop on and check out my new content. And the next video in this series, as it were. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. If you want to follow me on my Twitter, my Tumblr, my Facebook, you can interact with me on any of those platforms. You can see the links to those locations in the description below. And if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, or just want to interact with me in the comment section, I do read every comment and respond as I'm able. So feel free to mark that down in the comment section below. But either way, it's been a lot of fun going through all of this, and I'm glad you guys are able to come along for the ride. And I look forward to seeing y'all next time. I am Nate, the old school otaku, signing off.
Shucking these are fun. This could be a whole entire episode, just shucking one of these and showing you what it takes to get one of these up and running. Hint, requires this.